Midweek mailbag. We are back. We are just 3 weeks away from the 2023 NFL draft, and we are here to answer your Detroit Lions questions. Many of them, of course, draft related this week. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the producer over at Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. With me, as always, to answer some of your questions as well is the what are we gonna go with this week? Flu survivor, draft expert, managing editor of Pride of Detroit at Eric Schlitt on Twitter. Eric Schlitt is here. How we doing, man?
Hey, buddy. I'm a little tired,
You hanging
but
in there?
hanging in there.
You've got the draft fever. That's what it is, right?
I think I don't know. I don't know. I'm just tired. I got get hit with something. So we're
But
gonna
he's
muscle through
he's
this.
muscling through it. It's his flu game. The Michael Jordan slash machine of this podcast. Like I said, we're getting a lot of draft questions this week, and so let's just jump right into it because I found an interesting kind of trend with one set of questions is asking about the top 30 visits. We've seen
Yeah.
the reports come in with the top 30 visits. There are about 12 or 13 reported so far. So Hungry Lion over on the website asks, "What trend do you see in the visit?" And I'm gonna combine it with Intelligent Moose on Twitter, who asks, "Just looking at the top 30 visits, they haven't really had a look at any day one cornerbacks. Is this me diving too deep, or could they possibly look at taking a developmental guy in day two or day three instead, and exercise resources on the defensive line, guard, or backup quarterback on day one?" So are we over analyzing the top 30 visits? What is your takeaway from the guys that we know of so far?
Yeah. I mean, typically we overanalyze everything. You know, the Lions are sending people out to virtually every pro day, and they're having conversations with guys that are not being reported, and we're catching some that are, and so we're trying to collect them. But we know 13 of the 30, and I have a couple more lower name guys and maybe undraftable guys, but guys that didn't go to the combine that are probably coming in for medicals. And that's really kind of where we're at, right? We're getting a mesh of guys that they want to get medical work done on that weren't in Indianapolis for the combine. And then they're getting a mesh full of guys that are more top 100 guys, starting to handpick a couple of those that either it could be a variety of reasons why they bring them in. It could
Yeah.
be they have a character thing that they want to have a face-to-face interview about. It could be they need a medical follow-up. It could be that they you know whatever XYZ, right? There's like a variety of different reasons why they could bring these guys in, and they've got another 2 weeks to bring guys in too. So I think it's a little bit premature to be rubbing your hands together over your guy not being on the scheduled list. Also, keep in mind that they've met with a lot of guys at pro days. They've met with a lot of guys at all-star games. They've done a whole bunch of work on these guys. So there's been a lot of contact. They will have had contact with almost everybody. Sometimes the extra work is for a reason that goes beyond football. And so I don't think it's anything to get too worried about or read too much into. It's nice to see certain patterns and you can ascertain things, but again, it's all just kind of speculation
Right.
on our part.
Especially since, like you said, we only have a small piece of the puzzle. There are literally half
Yeah,
of these top 30 visits that we're unaware of at this point, whether they've happened or will happen. And I think back to the behind the den or inside the den video after the draft last year. And what did they take most of their footage from? Combine interviews. They didn't bring in all those guys necessarily for a top 30 visit. So I think you have to really take the whole scope of the entire thing. And so we have an entire list where
yeah,
we're taking into account the formal meetings at the combine, maybe some of the informal stuff at the pro days, the top 30 stuff, all of that. And you could probably find maybe the majority of guys that they're going to draft on that list. Maybe not, though. I mean, the Lions have also hid their intentions at times well. I do like, and to be clear, like they brought in Brian Branch, so it's not like they're completely ignoring the cornerback position. He's a day one or day two guy, probably a day one guy. But the one I want to talk about is Will Anderson because I feel like that's the most interesting one to me so far.
yeah. Mhm.
Because obviously I think a lot of people don't think that the Lions have a chance at Will Anderson, but the fact that they brought him in, suddenly everyone wants to talk about a trade up potential to get him either 3 or 4, wherever he might fall to. What's your take on them bringing in Will Anderson? Because it's interesting, right?
Yeah, they're not going to bring him in if they don't think they have a shot at him.
Right.
Whether it's somebody trades up and 4 quarterbacks go off the board, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, maybe one team does like Tyree Wilson better than him. And then he's there, or someone like takes Jalen Carter and all of a sudden Will Anderson's there. So, yeah, I don't think they would bring him in if they didn't have a legitimate reason to, because it's just a waste, right? Like there's no smoke screen advantage in this, right? It's okay. We want to cover all of our bases, and either he's going to be there, or maybe we think we move up. Maybe maybe it's not the 3. Maybe they think they can just move up 1. You know what I mean? Like it just depends. And so I think it's a due diligence thing, but also maybe the draft, maybe these guys do slide a little bit more than what we think they should, because realistically they shouldn't.
The other, I think, notable thing from the top 30 visits, and really if you look in all the trackers, there's really not that much contact with quarterbacks, which I find pretty interesting, right? I mean, obviously, you've got some interest in they brought in Adrian Martinez for a top 30, and Hendon Hooker continues to be kind of a conversation, maybe at 18 or in the second round. But in terms of those top 4 guys that we keep talking about, top 5 guys, they haven't brought any in for a visit.
Right, but they did meet with
Richardson at the combine, right?
At the combine,
right?
Yeah.
But if you were serious about a quarterback, would you want to do more diligence here? I mean,
maybe
I don't know. I obviously, like I said, like you don't want to read too much into this, but you hear reports every day of like the teams in the top 3, the teams in the top 4. Your Indianapolis, even teams like Tennessee, they're meeting with all these top guys. The Lions aren't even bothering, so maybe this kills a little bit of the trade up to 3 to grab a quarterback talk.
I would think it does, because the only one of the top guys they've been in contact with is Richardson, and they met with him at the combine. They were out at Florida a ton, but Florida has a couple other guys too, so they're not just necessarily going out there for him.
Yeah.
And I think what gets lost in a lot of the visits out to the colleges during the season is that sometimes they're doing advanced scouting as well.
Right.
Like they're scouting the whole team, not just like certain players. Right. Yeah. And so that way they have a basis so that they're not starting from scratch every season. So yeah, it's one of the reasons, I guess, why maybe subconsciously I've been saying I think if they're interested in Richardson, and that might be it.
Yeah.
Amongst the top guys, but yeah, I don't know. He's the one guy who kind of sticks out there as the maybe, but the Will Anderson visiting, the Carter visiting, those are pretty good signs for me that I still think they're probably leaning defense.